Hello, hi, welcome. Today I wanted to talk to you a bit about painting and painting by numbers, because what I've set myself up to do a few days ago is to simulate the image from a painting by numbers painting. You get a blank canvas like this, which cells containing a number, the number corresponding to the index of a predetermined flat color. So in the end, for most of them, you get a painting with flat colors inside each cell of the painting. I did not quite do so much research as to how the professional business is done, but there are also, as you can see in the first one, quite a few sites that offer a custom, fully automated process. What I found while searching quickly too is this Stack Exchange thread of a few years ago, with a have a challenge where I have a specific problem definition that I'm not going to take, and I'd rather start with my own ideas from very naive to more complex, and at the end, if I also have time, I'll try to gather ideas from what is currently done. But first I need to explain a bit what is this CIELab color space. So by default, the image we're going to get is in the RGB color space and is an integer between 0 and 255, no floats. If you're more used to working with computer vision for machine learning, you might be used to having them as a float 64 between 0 and 1. But by default, OpenCV in Python opens them as uint8, so that's 0 to 255 with full integer. Using the RGB color space is not quite optimal for us here, because we're working with perception, and the RGB color space lacks what is called a perceptual uniformity. So the main issue with this is related to using distances on the color space, because what it means, as the name implies, is that the same distance, when sampled at different locations of the cube, have a very high variance in how the human eye can perceive the color change from the start to the end of that distance. So what we have multiple color spaces that exist, but one we're going to want here is either the CIELab or the CIELab. They're both made by the CIA in like 1970 or something. And these two are designed exactly for that. My first naive approach was to take this 0 to 255 range and resample it lower. So as you can see here on this bare image, which is going to be the test, so we slowly lose these color details until we get to very low values, which we don't get really anything useful. We need a few colors, but it's not quite the right colors, and we still have too much spatial precision. So one other thing that I tried for colors is to look at the color frequencies of the image and then just take the top n colors. So this is obviously not quite satisfactory in the way I did it here, because I take every colors without reducing the range. So I tried mixing up the two. So this technically works, in that, for example, here I've reduced it to 0, 10 cubed color space, and then I take the top n colors. So for example here, with just 20 colors, we already have most of the picture. And then the question becomes, what do we do with the blue values, which is where we have empty values? And not only that, but the colors get affected. I did not set out to implement that, because that would just mean basically rewriting the algorithm that I was going to steal for my next part, which is just using a KMeans algorithm. So what this KMeans algorithm is effectively going to do in a color space is, if I just take, for example, the RG plane of the RGB cube, if we just have a few points decided randomly, then we can draw for every point of that plane. Now here I can draw the lines that separate each new cell, and this cell are defined as what part of the plane is closest to that red point, rather than any other point. And this is essentially what the KMeans algorithm is going to do. Not quite, this is technically just a Voronoi. But if you repeat this over time with the added Now if you add the fact that you have a dataset behind it, you can imagine the iterations that happen to bring these red points as to the right places to sum up that blue data points. We can predefine the numbers of colors that we're going to want. For reminder, this is what the bear looks like. And then I'm going to take just 2 colors in the LB space. For every color in the input image, we're going to take which color of the LB space is closer. And these 2 colors are not defined by me, I just defined 2, and they're defined by which location the KMeans clustering algorithm thinks is the best based on every point of that image, which means that the end colors depend on the input image. We can then increase the number of colors until we get something that's going to look more and more like the input image. I then wondered if just resizing the image and then stretching it out would effectively make cells in the spatial space of the image, not the color space anymore. But as you can see, nothing of value happens. With the color choice kind of address, I decided to focus on the cells themselves that we need, in a sense reducing the spatial precision of the image, as we cannot realistically have little dots as they are features in this image to paint with. Although I still quite like this kind of result, and so I saved it up as one type of method out of the multiple end method that I'm going to show the result of. I used bilateral filtering, the main reason being that it would not affect the edge much and it would not change the colors of what it was filtering. So it's a type of blur, as you can see the increase on the same image. But the end result is that the edges are perfect. There are still a few dots, but they could be cleared up by something. But they give the effects that we need. As a final touch for post-processing, since we have a blurred image, I added sharpening. The further we increase the blur, the more it becomes useful to resharpen the image afterward, so that we have a lot of definition on the edges, especially of the smaller cells. So in the end, that gives us 3 parameters to play with: the number of colors, the strength of the blur, and the level of sharpening. In practice, I increase the sharpening as the blur increases. And so this gives me essentially 3 main methods.